Are you ready to hear some of what seems to be the craziest shit you've ever heard on the surface until you find out, those of you who actually do, find out that it's absolutely true? This is going to sound crazy to some people. Other people, they'll figure it out and they'll realize that it's far from crazy. Truth is stranger than any conceivable work of human fiction. I'm one Sir Grove. I've often talked about this subject. I have often talked about this subject of truth being stranger than fiction. This is a mobile podcast, so I'm multitasking, so bear with me. So, when I was at the tail end of my college university education, I had a bunch of shitty fucking jobs like a lot of people do in life. I come from a middle class family, had an uncle who had a little bit more than middle class background, income, and so I had privileges. Nonetheless, I was on my own in college at the time. Shout outs to my uncle and my family and my mother and my grandmother and my grandfather and my sister, my aunts, my uncles, plural. But my one uncle, my one particular uncle, he raised me when my dad wasn't around and when my mother was overseas and when I didn't want to stay with my mother because of her husband at the time, who was not my biological dad. So that being stated, I'm out on my own. I'm in college at the time, and I've traveled more than half the United States. And so I am working at the time at this venue. And I'd been there for it wasn't anything that I worked, it wasn't a job that I kept for a long time. It was like maybe 2 months, and if that. So, and one day I happened to notice, I had never noticed it before. Maybe I did, and I just kind of brushed it off. I noticed that the tiles on the ground had these little inscriptions, and I was like, what? What does this say? And I think I had seen it, but I was just like, it's just some nonsense, just some scribble scrabble, some jabberwocky, some gibberish. And but I focused on it one day when there was no one there but me and some people upstairs, and I looked and I saw that there were all these little sayings everywhere. I was like, what? So I followed the trail of these little things, and one of them said, all of life's questions, puzzles, riddles are answered in the movies. And I was like, what? That's surreal. And again, it was all of life's puzzles, riddles, questions, mysteries are answered in the movies. And I was like, wow, what a coincidence. So when I became a defense contractor, I started to read all these files that some of them had previously been highly classified and secret, top secret, above top secret. And one of the things that I found in open source literature was and I'm not, and I shouldn't be laughing because it's not really funny. I mean, it's, okay, on the surface, kind of makes one chuckle, but in reality, if it's for real, it's cataclysmic. It's fucking nuts. So, I've often talked about how there is a body of literature somewhere you can find it, where the Hollywood producers, by the way, this is C4CW, casting 495 celebrities worldwide. If you are true fans of this show, then IWE495 most certainly appreciate you. So, that's station identification. Have to do it. Notice how I got it down to a science after a year of podcasting. But yeah, so in reality, there's a body of information that it states that Hollywood producers working on the movie Terminator, working on them. I know. I've said it before on a podcast, but I'm going to expound upon what it is that I've said in the past. Hollywood producers met with DARPA, public affairs folks, and some other folks. And they said, look, we're Hollywood producers. We're working on this movie called Terminator. And we wanted to consult with the government and see what the government might be able to offer in the way of military defense, like androids for future warfare. And the DARPA program, man, this is in writing. This is a real thing. If you talk to Cameron, James, if you talk to people in Hollywood, this shit happened. I'm not fucking making this up. Rest assured, this is a real thing. DARPA managers were perplexed. They were like, how do you have this? What? Who came up with this idea? And the Hollywood producers thought that what they were showing DARPA was virtually impossible, like an impossibility, like something so far flung, so far out. If you go back and watch the first Terminator, do those Terminator androids, robots, really seem that advanced to this day? Do they? I'm talking about the first Terminator movie. They came, man, was I in junior high school or high school? It was rated R. It's old school. If you look at those Terminator droids, they are not as sophisticated as what DARPA shows you today. The Atlas robot, if you can find the most, and I posted it on my Twitter page. If you go to Twitter right now, /AONN Records, that's Alpha Oscar November, RECORDS Records, AONN Records. If you go to my Twitter page, you can see a couple of clips that I posted from YouTube today regarding Boston Dynamics and military robots, androids. And what you will see is they're in one of the videos. It is that particular video of the 1, 2, or 3 that I posted. One of them is an evolution of Boston Dynamic robots from like 2012 to like 2018, 19, like last year. It's 2020 now. By the way, it's 52 degrees out, and it's a Tuesday, and it's the year 2020. So the first Terminator movie came out in 1984. 84! Oh my God, I was literally in elementary school. Elementary school! That's how fucking old Terminator is. I'm almost 50 years old. I mean, not really, but close enough. Might as well fucking be. I'm not that close to 50, but I'm not too far off from 50 years old. So, almost a fucking half a century ago, man. I'm just saying, like, almost. 1984. Those Terminator robots, man, back then, if you look at them, and you see how they move about the landscape, you see how they operate, they look like the animatronic. They look like the animatronic Abraham Lincoln that used to be in Anaheim at Disneyland. I saw Abraham Lincoln, the animatronic, in Disneyland close up on a day when there were like, man, I think I was the only person in the theater at Disney at the time. It was a time of day when there was like no one in the theater. I saw it multiple times. I like left the venue, came back, left, came back, left, came back. I saw Abe Lincoln on stage, and he'd walk out on stage and he'd talk to you. That animatronic, listen. That animatronic in Disneyland, Abe Lincoln, back then, was that fucking 82? I think that was 1980 fucking 2. Nah, couldn't have been 82. Was it 84? I can't remember when I was in Disneyland, but it was in the 80s and I was a kid. It was in the 80s and I was a kid. Because I went to Expo 86. That's the World Expo. I went to the World Expo after I went to Disney. So it had to have been before 1986 that I was at Disney. And that Abe Lincoln back then in the 1980s looked like Abraham Lincoln. It walked out on fucking stage by itself. An animatronic. A humanoid-looking robot, android. Disney owned that contrivance, that machine. That was in the 1980s. If Disney, a multi-billion-dollar multinational company, can own animatronic robots back in the 80s that walk out on stage and look just like fucking humans and move around with mannerisms and gestures that are very human-like, that could fool people. I mean, it looked like a human being back then. It didn't even really look like stilted or like, it moved very much like a human. It was fucking amazing. It was incredible. Imagine what the U.S. Department of Defense had at the classified level. Imagine what DOD had for androids back then, if that's what Disney fucking had. Imagine what the U.S. military had secretly that looked human-like back then. What's my point? Well, I just made my point. DOD obviously had very human-looking robots back then in the 1980s. At the classified level. Disney, at the non-classified, unclassified level, had robots, animatronics, machines that could walk out on stage by themselves, and they looked fucking very real. We're talking Disney money. Basically Bill Gates level money. So, flash forward to Boston Dynamics. Boston Dynamics was formed in what year? Let's find out. Because that Terminator movie came out. That's Hollywood now. Hollywood, 1984. Terminator robots, 1984. Boston Dynamics Robotics Company, Wikipedia, founded in 1992. So 84, add 6 years, you're in 90. Add 2 more years, you're at 92. So from the time that Terminator debuted in 1984, James Cameron, from the year that it debuted, 6 years later, less than a decade later, the Boston Dynamics company was formed. Yeah. Is that right? 84 to 90 plus 2 years. That's 6 years. It's it's 2/3 of a decade. 2/3 of a decade after Terminator, the movie was made. Boston Dynamics debuted. If you go back and you look at the robots, Atlas, and other robots that Boston Dynamics was making back in 1992, those robots looked like shit. They looked awkward. They looked clunky. They looked bulky. They looked stilted. In 1992, 6 years after the movie Terminator came out. But keep in fucking mind, I'm not saying that Boston Dynamics planned it. I'm saying, but keep in mind, animatronic, humanoid-looking robots that look far more realistic, far more polished, far more refined, could walk out on fucking stage themselves. We're not bulky. We're not clunky. We're not really fucking awkward. That animatronic robot that I saw, that I've even seen on YouTube, looks pretty fucking human-like. Looks pretty fucking human-like. And that was long before Boston Dynamics. So a Boston Dynamics was a super advanced company for its time in 1992. How is it, we're talking about anachronisms now. Non-linear time. Things that are out of place on the timeline. How was it that Boston Dynamics, with its funding, was creating, air quotes, advanced robots that looked shittier, way shittier? Atlas the robot used to look, it looked like he had trusses on him. He looked like a fucking fire truck with these big rectangular, like, blocks that he had, like, over his arms and legs. I mean, he looked like a fucking erector set. And he had this big apparatus connected to him, like some big, like, roll cage, like a roll cage for a truck. I mean, it looks stupid as fuck. Keep in mind, 6 years before that, there were humanoid robots that looked almost fucking human. Now, flash forward to now, 2020. When you go, if you do, to my Twitter page, and you look at the evolution of Boston Dynamics, because it's a YouTube video that shows an evolution of Boston Dynamics, it shows you the first versions of what Boston Dynamics was doing. And it depicts and shows pretty much everything that I've just described. How Boston Dynamics started off with these really wobbly, wonky, fucking silly, wacky, bulky, awkward fucking robots. They just look stupid, man. For a company, listen, Boston Dynamics is no fucking joke. It's no joke. But when it first began, the robots looked stupid. Even Japan, at the same time in 1992, had human, realistic looking humanoid robots that could fool a lot of humans. At the same time, Boston Dynamics was making shitty looking robots. Japan in the 1990s had robots that it was working on that looked even more advanced than the Abraham Lincoln animatronic in Disneyland prior to 1994. The Abraham Lincoln I saw before the year 1996. I'm going to say I went to Disneyland. I'm going to say I went to Disneyland the same year that Terminator came out. I'm just saying, what a coincidence. I go to Disneyland, 1984. I see Abraham Lincoln. I'm like, whoa, this dude looks real walking out on stage. This animatronic, this robot, this is a trip. It's like seeing Abe Lincoln in the flesh. It's kind of like the attorney from Seattle who's been part of the DARPA program, according to his accounts, where he time traveled and he went back to the Gettysburg Address to see the real Abe Lincoln. Well, here I am seeing the animatronic version of Abe Lincoln. The same fucking year I see the animatronic version of Abe Lincoln at Disney, the movie Terminator came out. Doesn't not ringing a bell with any of y'all yet? So then check it out. So then Japan's making animatronic, humanoid, human, realistic looking robots. Boston Dynamics starts a company in 1992 with some shitty looking robots that over time they refine and upgrade and update that ultimately end up looking like robots more advanced than the Terminator movie from 1984. Boston Dynamics robots to this day, the most updated, most current, most recent version of Boston Dynamics robots look more advanced than what is shown in the film in 1984. So listen up. Some people might be saying, so what, Grove? Who fucking cares? It's like the horoscope, man. You know, the horoscope isn't real, Grove, in my opinion, which I agree with them. I don't believe in horoscopes. But I'm just saying that, like, anyone can write a book and say, well, if you're born on this month, then all of these attributes, all of these things apply to you. I mean, it's just like the information, it can be skewed, it can be crafted, it can be shaped. When we talk about shaping intel, people can fabricate information. I can take a bunch of different personality types, write a list of them, that is make a list, type a list, write a list, come up with a list, formulate a list, and be like, all right, if you're born in February, all of these different things apply to you. And you might be like, okay, Grove, of the 100 fucking things, 100 different characteristics, different traits, different attributes, none of those apply to me, but that one kind of sort of does. And I could say, you see, I'm right. Yeah, dude, this zodiac sign is totally you. That's how horoscopes work. They're bullshit. So I know some people out there are like, Grove, How dare you? Astrological signs are totally fucking for real, man. How dare you, Grove? I'm a firm believer in the zodiac sign shit. And I'll be like, well, whatever, dude. That's your world's subjective belief system. And, you know, I also believe that Medusa is fucking real. And I believe that, you know, the whole Clash of the Titans, every fucking mythological character in the movie's fucking for real. Totally, dude. You know? Yeah. Every mythological creature that's ever talked about in mythology is totally real, man. Yeah, I could say the same shit, just like you can say that the Zodiac's fucking for real. Whoever out there believes in the Zodiac. So, that being stated, someone could very easily say, hey, Grove, you know, I hear what you're saying about all these different, like, instances of you went to Disneyland, you saw the lifelike Abraham Lincoln, Terminator came out the same fucking year. Those robots weren't as advanced as Abraham Lincoln at Disney. 6 years later, there's a company that's created that made some robots that later became more advanced than what's in the Terminator movie. I mean, come on, Grove. How could the producers of Terminator know what the future would be like? I mean, they're just Hollywood producers. So, yeah, they made some robots thinking that what they made in those movies was going to be fucking more advanced than what's now. As it turns out, they were wrong in some respect. And we, as a society, have outpaced what even is shown in that 1984 movie. Okay, so what? Boston Dynamics has made robots that are clearly more advanced than what is shown in the 1984 Terminator movie. I don't see any Boston Dynamics robots that are armed with high-energy lethal lasers, Grove. But yeah, I see what you're saying. The robots that are 2020, the Atlas version now, not the first one or the second or third or fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10, but the like newest one. I get it. It looks sleeker than the ones that are in the fucking movie Terminator. I can see what you're saying. It does backflips, forward flips, side flips. It can do this, it can do that clearly Terminators didn't do in the fucking movie. I didn't see a single Terminator do a backflip, forward flip, side flip, diagonal flip, and Boston Dynamics can do that. But Grove, they're not armed with lasers. And then I'm like, right, but they are armed with lasers. Now, maybe you're not fucking paying attention. The U.S. military had robots more advanced than what Boston Dynamics is pretending is advanced back when Walt Disney back in 1984 had animatronics that look lifelike. If Disney had robots that looked lifelike back in 1984, the U.S. government had lifelike looking robots in 1984 that were armed with some type of machine gun, some type of fucking weapon system, because that's what the U.S. military does. Now, did we ever see those animatronics, Westworld-looking robots in the public? No, but rest assured, of course the fucking military had that shit. If Walt Disney had it, the U.S. military had animatronics that were armed with fucking weapons. Even though we were led to believe that 6 years later, Boston Dynamics had the most advanced shit in the world. We know now, based on what Grove has pointed out, there's no fucking way Boston Dynamics robots could have been the most advanced in the world at the time. The Japanese even had publicly shown robots that were more advanced than what Boston Dynamics showed back in 1992. So Boston Dynamics, what is it? What is it? Clearly, Boston Dynamics could have made robots that looked just like Abraham Lincoln, but they didn't. They also could have made robots that look like Japanese robotics companies made that looked human-like, but they didn't. So from 1992 forward, a subset of the population was led to believe that Boston Dynamics had the world's most advanced robots, which don't know why anybody fucking would believe that. You could just Google shit on the internet and see shit that was more advanced than Boston Dynamics. But you see, not everyone does their research. People will believe whatever they're fucking being told by mainstream media and by U.S. government, military, psychological operations, warfare specialists, experts, practitioners, officials, scientists. Yeah, so Boston Dynamics wasn't even close to being the most advanced robotics company in 1992. I see what you're saying, Grove. So why would they show these clunky, wonky, awkward, clumsy fucking robots and pretend from 1992 until the year 2020 that the shit that they were making was the most advanced in the world at the time? Well, that's probably because the U.S. government doesn't want for people to know what the U.S. government has had since going back to at least the year 1984. Now, keep in mind, animatronic technology existed long before 1984. I'm just using that as a timestamp and as proof that if Disney had animatronics in 1984, you know the government had the technology. And you also know that the government had the technology way before 1984 and before Walt Disney ever had animatronic technology. So killer androids that look like humans predate 1984 by at least 10 years. Because whatever you see in the public, when it's brand new, the government had it at least a decade before. At least a decade before. So let's find out when animatronic, killer android robots that look just like fucking humans really first appeared in this world, on this world line, on this timeline. Let's look it up right now. Animatronics. All right, so check it out. I'm on Wikipedia. It says etymology, timeline, history, design. Let's go to timeline. It says 1939. Isn't that pre-World War fucking II? You already should know that it is. 1939. Sparko, the robot dog, pet of Electro, performs in front of the public. But Sparko, unlike many depictions of robots in that time, represented a living animal, thus becoming the very first modern-day animatronic character. So the very first animatronic character that was publicly known was in 1939. Long before World War fucking II, man. Long before World War II. There were animatronic characters. That seems like a bit of an anachronism, doesn't it? Someone out there? Mandela effect? Hello? 1939? That's interesting. I have seen in encyclopedias where video surveillance technology, I'm talking about cameras, door-mounted, like home, office, business, office, military, installation, defense, surveillance cameras existed back in the 1950s and 60s. That's in encyclopedias. It says DOD, 1950s and 60s. How is it that the Department of Defense had video surveillance cameras back then? But when you went to Radio Shack, they had these cameras that looked really grainy. It looked like snow on TV when it's nighttime and that channel has just nothing but snow. Some call it bees. Yeah, that was the most advanced that you could find at Radio Shack back in the 1980s. How was it that the government had video surveillance in the 1950s? 30 years before the 80s. And that when the public was able to buy that technology back in the 1980s, those video surveillance cameras, you could buy video surveillance cameras for your home, for your office from Radio Shack back in the 1980s. Yeah, they look like shit. Yeah, it was grainy and it looked like shit, but you could buy them. Well, why is it now that these surveillance cameras have just become popular in the past fucking few years? The technology existed back in the 1950s. It's not new technology. The public only adopted the technology just recently in the late 1990s and early 2000s. What about the 1980s and the 1970s and the 1960s? Did you see video surveillance cameras on doors, on homes, on businesses back then? No, you didn't. But the technology existed and the government had it. And it's in encyclopedias if you don't fucking believe it. Animatronics, robots that look more advanced than the first generation of Boston Dynamics robots from 1992 apparently started in 1939. That's the 1940s. From 40 to 2000 is 60 years. Add 10, that's 70 fucking years. Again, from 1940 to the year 2000, that's 60 years. To the year 2010 is 70 years. 70 fucking years to the year 2010. Animatronics to the year 2000 fucking 10. 70 years. It's 2020. That's 80 fucking years ago. 80 years ago, animatronic technology that looks more advanced than Boston Dynamics in 1992 existed. How is it that animatronic technology existed that's more advanced on the surface level, looking, I'm saying polished, humanoid looking, creature mimicking nature, representative of nature, a creature, an animal from nature, made into an android, robotic machine in 1939, Sparko, more advanced, 80 years before Boston Dynamics ever started its company, became a company, materialized. How is that? Did you know that? So, let's look a little deeper here. It says 1961. Heinrich Ernst develops the MH1, a computer-operated mechanical hand. That was in 1961. 1961, same year, Walt Disney coins the term audio animatronics, and his WED Enterprises team begins developing modern animatronic technology. What a fucking coincidence. In 1961, animatronic technology was being created by Walt Disney. In 1964, in the film Mary Poppins, animatronic birds are the first animatronics to be featured in a motion picture. The first animatronic figure of a person is created by Disney and is Abraham Lincoln, featured at the Illinois State Pavilion of the 1964 New York World's Fair. Really? 1964. There he is on stage, Wikipedia. Let's see, 1964. Let's make it 1960. To 2000 is 40 years. To 2010, 50 years. To 2012, 52 fucking years. 52 fucking years plus 4. 56 years. Ish. Just make it 60 years ago. How is it that 60 fucking years ago-ish, there were more advanced robots than the first generation of Boston Dynamics in 1992. 1992. Oh, I'm sorry. I was good. Yeah, I know. I just saw the math in my mind. My fault. I was after 2000 and I was going to 2012. My math was based on 2012. Okay? 2012. Nonetheless, 40 to fucking 50 years before Boston fucking Dynamics. 40 to 50 years before Boston fucking Dynamics. There were technologies that existed that were more advanced than what Boston Dynamics created in 1992. Why would the government want to lead people to believe that Boston Dynamics technology was more advanced? Was the most advanced at the time? When it really clearly fucking was not? It really clearly was not. And then over time, show the public these little step-ups, these little upgrades of Atlas. Look, Atlas doesn't look like a roll cage on a truck anymore. Look, Atlas doesn't look like an erector set anymore. Look, his anatomically, his limbs are a lot less rectangular and blocky. He looks more polished, like he's almost like a mannequin now. Now it's been 10 years. And they kept showing you in intervals this clumsy, wacky, goofy, silly fucking robot. Why? When clearly more advanced robotics have existed. What is Boston Dynamics trying to fucking do? Psychological operations, warfare? DARPA, US Gov wants for humans on this timeline to believe, wants for humans to forget about the fucking past and just buy some narrative, subscribe to some story. Oh, dude, did you hear about that company? It's called Boston Dynamics. Oh, what do they do? Man, they're building robots that look like humans. Really? That's amazing. Yeah, have you ever heard of Atlas? Dude, he looks like an erector set, but dude, he's super advanced. And then people fucking play along because people are lazy. They don't look into the past. They don't do the research. They don't even go to fucking Wikipedia where it's right there in front of their goddamn fucking faces. And so then over time, as subscribers to Boston Dynamics and DARPA and DOD and the US intelligence community, they buy this fucking narrative. Oh, dude, did you see the new upgrade? Dude, it's 1990. It's 1994. Dude, have you seen Atlas version 2? Dude, he's totally advanced now. And then every fucking update, people are just fucking rope-a-doped, just suckered into believing that the newest shit that they're seeing is the most advanced shit on the planet. If Walt Disney had animatronics that looked for real back in fucking 1984, the US government had animatronics in some type of fucking military installation somewhere that were armed with goddamn fucking guns. You have to know that. You have to understand that. If you don't, and if you don't fucking believe that, I feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for you that you will believe anything the government fucking dangles in front of you and presents to you as being reality. As being reality. Even Hollywood, multi-million-dollar producers were let in on it, and the government told them, look, we don't know how to tell you this, but what you've made for this movie, we already have technologies that are more advanced than what you're showing us. And the Hollywood producers were like, what? What did you just say? And they're like, yes, we can't go into details, but what you are presenting to us, what you are pitching to us, what you are asking us for advice about, we have that technology and beyond. Look, man, truth is stranger than fiction. All of life's riddles, questions, puzzles, and mysteries are answered in the motherfucking movies. They are, man. Go online, Google Star Trek technologies that became reality. There is a poster board that you can enlarge that shows like 100 technologies that became, or dozens of technologies that used to be science fiction that are for real. We have even teleported matter from one continent to another continent. So the teleportation technology is even fucking for real. Yes, scientists on planet Earth have teleported matter from one continent to another. We have also sent particles back in time. And we did that shit. Yes. So what is there in any fucking movie that has been shown that we haven't already done? Think about it. If we've already teleported matter on some small level and we've sent particles back in fucking time, what have we not fucking done that's in movies? Anachronisms, nonlinear time. Think about it. We already fucking did this shit, man. We did this before. And someone knows that. And these movies that you're being shown, are by way of presenters who somehow have this pre-knowledge, somehow have this information. And they've made billions of fucking dollars. And they shape your perception. And they also have an intimate relationship with the U.S. intelligence community, which you can read about too.